When was the last time a blurb actually made you want to buy a cookbook? Do blurbs matter? Who's really reading them? And why does asking for one feel like such a big deal? Today, we're going to talk about it all. Welcome to Everything Cookbooks, the podcast for writers, readers, and cooks. This is Kristin Donnelly, and I am here with the whole gang, Molly Stevens, Andrea and Kate Leahy. Hello.
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 Hello, everyone.
Blurbs. That's what we're talking about. But we should probably define what they are.
Can we at first talk about the word?
I know.
A blurb? I know. I was thinking about that.
It sounds so gross.
It does. Blurb.
Blob.
Like blob, right?
It's funny because when I first got into it, I remember being like, what the hell is a blurb? Like, it's a terrible word. But now, I mean, of course, a blurb is a blurb, but...
And then when you write one, are you a blurber?
Yes.
Or a blurbist?
But so what they are endorsements, quotes.
About your book from other people.
Right. They're not reviews. You can't take like a quote out of a review and call it a blurb. That's criticism. It's a different thing. But they're not criticism. They're an endorsement.
And solicited, usually, like
Yes.
solicited by the publisher or author.
So do you guys read blurbs when you get books?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I look at them.
Do you?
Yeah, I look at them. Why do you look at them, Molly?
Well, I think we're going to get into this. It's one of the articles cited talks about, friends talking about friends. It's a little bit like I look at the acknowledgments. It's sort of, I'm curious who blurbed the book. I probably look at the names before I look at the content.
Me too.
I also look at them because I'm curious about the writing of blurbs. They tend to be short, and so a good blurb is hard to do, and we'll get into that. But so I look at them.
Do they ever sway you to either purchase or make you feel differently about a book?
Kate's shaking
For me,
her
no,
head.
no, they do not make me. I think of blurbs as it just tells me who their friends are and or who their connections are, or who the publisher wants their connections to be. So to me, I think blurbs are important, and we'll get into that. But I do think it's more about who knows who kind of idea.
You have a very insidery look.
It's an insidery look, and I also wonder, that's probably what booksellers are looking at too. They're like, oh, we sold a lot of this author's book and they blurbed this book. Maybe we should take a flyer on it, especially if it's a new author. But as a buyer of books, that's not going to sway me. I do think it does sway bookstores and others. Maybe it also sways who gets reviews in the. So I do think they're important, but not for maybe the consumer. I think they're more important on how a consumer ends up learning about a book through all these other channels.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I look at blurbs and sometimes they sway me and sometimes they dissuade me.
Ooh, say more about that.
Well, sometimes a book will have celebrity endorsement, and I'm like, really? How well do you know that person? So is it an insider? And what do we want to know about your insider circle? So it's also how you are branding yourself as a cookbook author and how you want to brand your product, your book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Sally Eckes wrote this really great piece about blurbs. There were multiple pieces going around the internet about blurbs all at once. Sally's was very focused on cookbooks, and it's great. And we will link all of these in the show notes. Something she said, I just love the plain language she uses, but she's basically saying blurbs are written by people who are more famous than you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of love that she's just sorry.
So a couple thoughts. I feel in a way blurbs are comparable to comps in my mind, in that I don't think so much it's who the author knows. In many cases it is, but it's who the publisher is trying to get interested in your book, the market they're going after for your book. And we'll talk about finding the people to write blurbs, but they're often trying to get someone who is more famous than you, better known than you, the author.
Or at least in an audience, maybe.
In that audience. And so that might be a place where I am swayed, where if I see, and of course I'm not going to think of a good example, but somebody who's blurbed a book that is in a field and I respect that person, I might think, oh, this might be a contribution to that genre that I hadn't thought of. So I think in that way, I do consider who's endorsing them. And I think, oh, do you trust the blurbers?
Yes, yes. How trustworthy are the blurbs, blurbists? I want to know, and I know we'll get into this, but, we've all written our own books and written books with other folks, like, what was the first time out like?
Like asking for the blurbs?
Just like thinking about them. I mean, like your first book or when you're collaborating, when we'll get into the mechanics really soon, but I just like the first time out, I always feel like the first time is always the most special. You're starting out, you're about to launch your career, hopefully. And so how do blurbs impact you? I know that we have a lot of first-time authors among our listeners. And I think, what y'all do?
Well, it's definitely a very vulnerable experience. So something to know, if you're an author and you want to know how the blurbs work, a lot of times you're going to people to ask them to look at your book and potentially write an endorsement. Sometimes the publisher helps with that. Sometimes the publisher helps you create the list, but there is quite a bit of author involvement, and it is really vulnerable, I find, to make that request. And then receiving it is also vulnerable in that it's so touching, because it can be a really time-consuming thing for somebody to do. So yeah, how about the rest of you? How do you feel about that?
While I was working on my first book, I was not aware that I should be making a list of people I might reach out to. Mm-hmm. And I wished I had known that, because, I was able to do it, but, if I had been thinking about it further back, I would have probably done a more comprehensive job with that list. So that was something I was like, oh, I'm involved. I didn't know I should rely on my contacts. Certainly a vulnerable feeling. And also, and it probably says more about my character, but, asking people to say something nice about my work is felt like, I'm not supposed to do that. Obviously I understand it's a professional thing and you're not asking them to say something nice about you or your haircut, but you should believe in your book enough to ask somebody you admire to do it. But, to ask somebody who's very busy, and, for me, it was like a Judy Rogers. I was like, oh my God, am I really doing this? But then if you do get the blurbs back, it's an incredible feeling, especially because it happens well before publishing, and it can really fill your sails at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, sales, SAIL.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, we'll talk about whether blurbs help sales or not. SALE later. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Andrea? Like, now being, many books in, do you feel about blurbs?
Well, the first time out, I was like Molly. I wasn't thinking, I have to come up with a list of blurbers. Mm-hmm. And my first editor was Aaron Weiner, who's now like a very influential, powerful publisher in the cookbook space in particular. He and I came up with a list. By the time the book went to print, I had made a few, I'd gone to some conferences locally in the Bay Area at the CIA Greystone and met my heroes. They included folks like Elizabeth Ondo, Naomi Dogood. And so when he said, what about blurbs? I thought, those are the people I admire.
Yep.
And I said, can we ask them? Can we ask Coleman Andrews? Can we ask John Thorne? And can we ask Grace Young? Because I had met her too. And they all wrote these things. I was just like, oh my gosh, they're talking about me and my book. But Aaron asked. I did not ask.
That's cool. Yeah, I've seen it both ways, especially I guess if the publisher has the connection and they feel okay about it, they'll do it. My first book was with Clarkson Potter, so it was like, great. So can I now blurb my book?
Hey.
They were like, no.
Oh,
That's not how it works.
Damn.
They were just like, you really need to have that personal connection. Like, we're not going to just send Ina every book that we do.
Right. And I do think with if it's your first cookbook or your first book of any type, Oftentimes, if you have a really good relationship with the editor and maybe you also have an agent that has a little clout, they're going to help get you that list of people who make the most sense to ask. But I do think a lot of times it does, in this day and age, really fall on the author to make those requests. But I think a lot of times editors and agents are happy to help in any way. If they're the ones with the contacts, they might be the one who initiates the conversation or even just checks in like, hey, more famous than my author personality, what's your workload like now? I have this author. I think their work would really resonate with what you do. Would you have time? So I think sometimes a good agent, a good editor can like peek open the door and ask. But I do think, it does fall a lot on the author because it's kind of like, if you get a PR pitch and it's coming from a publicist versus the actual individual, say like on our podcast, if we get a pitch from somebody who's like a listener of the show and they're really passionate and they have a great pitch, we're maybe more likely to pay attention to it than we are if we're getting it through like a third party channel.
It's a really good point, Kate. It's a really good point. And I think, and Sally talks about in that piece, but as the author working with your editor, your agent, whoever it is, you're having this conversation and go through the list and say, you know what, this person is a friend of mine. I would like to reach out.
Yes.
Or they would say, I think it's better if we reach out. And sometimes it's you as the author might make the initial and say, hey, listen, I want to put you in touch with my publisher about this. I would say as someone who's been asked to blurb a few books, it's sometimes more comfortable working with the publisher than with the individual.
Good point.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Because, we don't always say yes. And sometimes the reason is not because we don't like the book, but sometimes it is. But like you said, how's your workload? Kate, you got a book coming out. Oh my gosh, I would drop everything, but I can't. You're a friend, but I just don't have time to read your book and do it.
You might be on deadline. The person you're asking the blurb from might be up against a huge schedule conflict.
Exactly.
We're kind of getting into the etiquette. And I think these are all such good points. There's also timing to consider where like how much time we give somebody, but also like the timing of when it all needs to happen. And I actually think that's something that happened with my book, Modern Potluck, where unfortunately I think blurbs became a little bit of an afterthought. And the blurbs came in late and they didn't end up on the cover. It was something I didn't even realize until later when somebody who provided a blurb asked me, hey, where's the thing I wrote? And it was used all across the marketing materials, but they need to come in time for the cover design and the cover print. So that can be like many, many months before your book is ever out.
Oh, most definitely.
Like 7-8 months.
Yeah.
But what if your book isn't like finished in design? It's not fully edited yet. I mean, you're giving somebody an incomplete version of your work oftentimes to asking them for
Talk
a
about
blurb.
Vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then you just go, I just want you to know that these are unedited.
I remember asking, Dara Goldstein for a blurb for Lavash. And I'm like, please ignore all the typos. Because I was like finding typos left and right. And this was like first pages. The book had just been floated into design. I'm like, ooh. And she's like, okay, noted.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is often other authors, so they kind of know the drill. But it feels like it's nice to give people, like at least 3 weeks to review something for a blurb, or a month? What do you think?
I feel comfortable with 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I have been asked, get this, 1 friggin' week.
What?
Oh,
Yeah.
1 week before? Wow. Okay.
And I was like, no.
The thing that pisses me off about that is that, I mean, obviously they would have given you more time if they been able to manage the timeline. But the thing that I don't like about that is they're asking me to do an incomplete job. They're saying, just blurb it. We don't care if you read
Right.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. My response is, how much wiggle room do you have if I want to blurb for that person?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't, I just say, I'm sorry, I don't have the bandwidth for it. But if I really do care about the person, I will say, you know what? Ask your editor how much wiggle time, because 1 week, 2 weeks is just not enough, because I will read that book.
Yeah.
Read the book, and with the cookbook, I cook out of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I try to.
I wonder if people, like the just blurb it, Molly, that you're mentioning, I wonder if that's what like most people think they're looking for, but most blurbers actually want to take the time to consider it.
Your name is attached, you know?
Yeah, I just feel like more time is better.
A blurb endorses the work and the person. I mean, sometimes it's just for the person, but I look at both things. Sometimes you're looking for a blurb because you want someone to tell you that this person is like done their homework, is a voice we should be listening to, is an authority. You know, why am I buying a book from this person? And the other thing a blurb can do is tell you how well researched, how carefully tested, how well written, how whatever journey the book will take you on.
Yeah, and if they've tried some of the recipes like you have, Molly, then how good the flavors are.
Right.
And for the Cooking Thai book, one of our recipe testers was Heidi Swanson. So when it came time to gather blurbs, we were like, is it okay? Is it kosher to ask Heidi?
Good question.
Because she's tested, and it was like, heck yeah. Right. So, she included the fact that she had like worked through, a number of the recipes in the book. And it was so important for us to include her perspectives as a vegetarian cookbook author and vegetarian person, but also her sensibility about cookbooks. So, when you're making that list, it's really targeted. You want to market segment your blurbers that you go after.
Right.
Yeah, I saw this piece of advice that talked about like a tier system for your blurbers. This was geared toward fiction authors because they were talking about having like 10 dream blurbers, 10 realistic ones, and 10 short things. It was reminding me of like college application, your dream school or your reach schools, your realistic ones, whatever, and your safety schools. But asking 30 people felt like a lot. And I was like, the cookbook world is way smaller, and you'll probably... like your hit rate will probably be higher than, I guess, like a novelist.
Yeah. I mean, 10 is a lot to ask, period.
Yeah.
You can only include so many blurbs. And with Lavash, we got 5 really good blurbs. And Chronicle was like, you have too many blurbs. We don't want to run them all. And I said, I'm sorry, but we're running them all. We got these hard-earned blurbs. They all, as Andrea said, they all served a different tier. They all served a different purpose. We had someone from the Smithsonian. We had a well-known Armenian American, had a well-known cookbook author. You had to have these different buckets. And for them to say, oh, to us as an author, I mean, I can't speak to Chronicle. I'm sure they weren't thinking it this way. But as an author, when you hear that I got these 5 great blurbs and you don't want to run them all, you're thinking, oh, our book isn't as important as the other books that you're repping that season. And that was the feeling I got.
Yeah. No, at that point, oh, God, I mean, you just want to hate on your publisher.
Yeah. They ended up running the blurbs, but it was a conversation.
And were they all on the back cover or the front cover, or where did they end up?
They were all on the back cover. And nowadays you can see different things where you might have them on front matter, back pages. There's other places for the blurbs, but they all did run on the back cover, which is heavy for blurbs. Oftentimes nowadays you're seeing maybe 1
to 2.
Yeah. It's like 1 or 2. And then in the days when book had jackets,
right? You could get a lot more. Fit a lot more on there.
But now that they'll go into the inside pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what for Sean's Turtle Island. He had a lot of blurbs, and most of them went more on the interior.
Yeah. We did the same thing with Cooking Thai. We got 9 out of 10. And some of these people wrote like mini essays.
Oh, wow. Because like we're talking about where to use them on the book, but I remember Phoebe Lapine, because she is friends with Ina Garten, or friendly. Like Ina I'm sure she wrote something else, but all they took was, I love this book. And they put it on the front cover, and it's like, hey. But anyway, if you want to use the whole quote and not just, I love this book, like you can sprinkle all that throughout your marketing.
Throughout your marketing, I mean, it'll show up on your sales page on Amazon, places like that. But what is the etiquette, but protocol on editing blurbs? So you say you got a blurb and it's way too long or too wordy, or it says something that the other blurbs say. What is that process of editing, and who does it, and how does it happen?
The editor does it.
Yeah.
You, the author, do not touch that. I see it as division of church and state, practically.
And as a blurber, you get, in most cases, I get an email that says, we've had to shorten it. This is what we want to edit.
Yep. Yeah. That's my experience. Yeah. Question for you all. Are there certain phrases that you see in a blurb where you're thinking, oh, this person didn't really like the book, but they like the person and they're trying to be nice? Like you see this in novels where it's sort of like, in a book that nothing happens, but the person's trying to blurb and be nice. They're like, it's a lyrical tale of emotional depth. And you're like, what does that mean? That tells me nothing. But are there certain words in cookbook blurbs that you see?
A strong effort.
A good try. Lots of work went into this book.
I do feel terrible because I don't always read through a ton of blurbs. Like there is a sameness to many blurbs to me. So I do tend to pay attention, especially when it's like a non-cookbook person. Like who blurbs. Like I just saw on I think it was on Ifra's Somalia, like the back blurb is from Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. So yeah, sometimes there's just a sameness. I feel bad saying that. I guess that brings us to like, do the blurbs matter? Again, like in some ways we're not the average consumer. Does it sway us? But for an average consumer, I don't know.
I asked Patrick this, would you ever buy a book based on a blurb? And he looked at me like, why would he do that? Like he'd buy the book based on the subject matter. But I think it goes down to the sales funnel on how is that person walking in that bookstore even seeing that book on the shelf to begin with. And I do think that's what blurbs do. They're more of maybe a B2B marketing than they are B2C.
It's a good point, Kate, because blurbs, I mean, say you're shopping online, I mean, they'll show up, but they're not the same as on the back cover. Like, so it's really in a bookstore where you're noticing.
You'll experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that people who are the average bear cookbook consumer may not know all these people and why they're important. Like, yeah, these are nice things, that someone says about a book. But they're also reading probably the author bio. So many other things are swaying them to convert them to purchase. The photography, maybe there's, if you're shopping online, there's like a sample recipe that's shared. The photography, and what pulls them initially in is like the subject matter. But I think that the blurbs help sway a certain segment of the audience. And that segment can be very influential to the success of your book.
Yeah. When the blurbs did not end up on the Modern Potluck cover, the publisher was a little bit like, honestly, blurbs don't really like move the needle on a book. But, my agent was kind of like, when you're a lesser known author, it's like use every tool in the toolbox. So he was kind of bummed on my behalf about that because it was like, even if it sells like a handful more books, but then those people talk about it and blah, blah, blah. But I was also thinking, and we've kind of touched on this, it's like the who versus the what, but I'm looking at Diana Henry's A Bird in the Hand. Diana Henry is well known, especially among cookbook authors, but on the back, this says, everything Diana Henry cooks, I want to eat, which isn't about the book. But it's from Yodam Adelengi. I'm wondering, in her case, like, especially with that part of her career, like having Yodam's endorsement is then just like brings her to the next level for then like getting the next book and more awareness and on and on it goes.
Right. It's kind of like when you're shopping online, they say, if you like this, you might like these. And so if you see blurbs by one or two names that you're like, oh, I like their sensibility, I like their taste, you might say, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I would trust the editor and the publisher to make that match because, someone like Yotam, he reads the book. Mm-hmm. He's very thorough and very thoughtful, which is why, he's a genuine, authentic person on many levels. So, having his willingness to take a look at a book and then write a blurb is a huge win. Mm-hmm. And his words carry so much weight.
Yeah.
So, as we went after Yotam's endorsement for the Thai book and we got it, and he wrote like some of the most incredible things, but along with like Ruth Reichel.
Amazing.
Yeah. And this is going back to what you were saying, Molly, at the beginning. It's like you're making a book. You're like, God, I'm like working so damn hard. And is anybody going to realize how good this book is? And then when these people who are they're like high consumers, they're intense readers of cookbooks. When they say something that's genuine and authentic, and they really looked at the book and you can tell, you're like, yay!
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it feels great as an author, but then I'm also like looking again at this, like the blurb they used on Diana Henry's cookbook, and Yota might have been totally like thoughtful and thorough, but then what they use is basically like everything Diana Henry cooks I want to eat. They're like, that's enough.
Yeah.
But from a consumer perspective, I'm like, maybe it is.
I think that's probably enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Yotam says so, I'm handing over my credit card.
Exactly.
Just to going back to the whole, argument on whether blurbs matter. I mean, I think what we're saying is that they do matter. I think you have proof of this when Simon & Schuster made this big announcement. They were no longer going to run blurbs on books. And this happened, was it maybe a year ago? Guess what? If you pick up a Simon & Schuster book, they still have blurbs on them. They're still laden with blurbs. I mean, the thing about blurbs is they are important for these reasons. Is you get validity, but also you just get put into like, I'm a professional author. I have a book out. These other professional authors, I'm in their like circle now. And in the attention economy too, it just gives another person who might be able to go out and say, oh yeah, I blurbed that book. It was great. That whole word of mouth, it's really important. So I just don't think we're getting away from blurbs. I do think the problem with blurbs though, is that it is unpaid labor on behalf of, Molly, Andrea, when you were asked, this is a chunk of your time. You're not getting paid for it. You're basically giving free marketing publicity to these authors. In exchange that, one day somebody like Yotam can do do you a solid. They matter, but it's an imperfect system. There's lots of problems with it.
It is.
There were these articles about the Simon & Schuster backlash against blurbs, and we can link them in the show notes. But there's also an author, Rebecca Mackay, and she put her foot down for a while and was saying like she's not blurbing books for a few years at least because of this unpaid labor you're talking about. But she also acknowledges that it's a really important part of being a literary citizen, was her quote. Or not really important, but she says part of being a literary citizen. And it's similar in cookbooks, I think. It doesn't necessarily entitle you, an author, for any author to blurb your book, but I do think that there's this like reciprocity, generosity part of being in the cookbook world where blurbing when you feel, authentically excited about something is a nice thing to do if you can do it.
It also, for the blurber, it keeps your name out there. I mean,
100%.
Someone like an Iron Garden doesn't need to blurb, or Yotap doesn't need to blurb, but for lesser literary citizens like myself, if I'm asked to blurb, the first time I was asked, and I'm not asked that often, I was like, whoa, somebody thinks my name is an endorsement. There's a little, boost there for your work, and like you're like, oh, my word means something. But it also is a chance for your name to show up, and if the book is wildly successful, every print run has your name on it, and under the name it says what you're known for. So it's not all selfless giving to this author.
Yeah.
There is some, it's small, but there's a benefit, I would say.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to look at it.
Yeah, no, it is. There is a benefit. When I am asked to blurb, it's like by people I admire or young chefs or young cookbook authors who are coming up who may have interacted with me on Instagram or something. When I started out, I knew so few people, yet people who looked at my work and saw it as being good helped me. Mm-hmm. I'm paying back, and trying to help folks coming up in the industry. And also sometimes, like with the pho cookbook, I'll tell you, I wrote the introduction thinking about something that David Chang had written in Lucky Peach about how like pho was like the next ramen. So I wrote the introduction to the pho cookbook with David Chang as my muse. It's like, and then Lucky Peach, when it was still around, ran the introduction. They excerpted it. And then I got Chang to blurb for the book. It was like for me, that was like a huge win because I was just, because, you have something to say. It's something that we discuss throughout the life of this podcast. And I really do think that as an author, you can put all of these things into play as you're putting the book together. And it can be an extremely rewarding process.
Do you think that moved the needle on sales for that book?
I think so.
Maybe the Lucky Peach thing is special. Like
Yeah.
David combined with the Lucky Peach because it was such a moment for that publication.
They did an entire fall issue practically. It was just, Peter Meehan stuck his neck out and did that. It was, for me, such a great thing. And for the sales of the book, I mean,
Yeah, there was such a what's the word? Passionate community around Lucky Peach.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. We've kind of talked about, what makes a good and, maybe when somebody's phoning in their blurb. Do you have any examples of really great blurbs?
One of my favorites probably does not qualify as a good blurb because it's really long. It's on Tasty by Roy Fenimore. And it's from Diana Kennedy. And it's a letter. It says, "Dear Roy, will you invite me to breakfast, lunch, and dinner?" And then goes on. It's a full paragraph about all the things she wants him to cook from the book. And then ends with, "I can't wait. In the meantime, I raise my glass to one of the great unheralded cooks of America," blah, blah, blah. So
Wow.
I love it.
It doesn't fit into, it should be succinct, but I love it. It's always been it takes up a huge chunk of space. They designed the back cover around it.
But that's so Diana Kennedy.
Exactly. And it's Diana Kennedy. So
Yeah,
you're going to run it.
Yeah. That's hugely special.
And it gets away from all the adjectives. Maybe that's what it is about blurbs.
superlatives.
You need all those adjectives, but at the same time, it just feels like you're reading this litany of adjectives.
Full of mouth-watering recipes. It will be grease spattered and dog-eared in my kitchen.
Right. The cliches. Oh, the cliches.
Yes. I mean, a good blurb is one that expresses that the blurber has really gone through the book, or the blurber knows something about the author or the cuisine, and they see that the book has value and is contributing something, and it's pivotal. It's a game changer. It's doing something interesting that matters.
What if a book is not a game changer, though? Because I do feel like there are a lot of really nice cookbooks that meet the moment, but they're not game changers.
I can talk about my book, Wine Style, which is a single subject book. It's a small book, small marketing budget, all that kind of stuff. And there was not going to be a single blurb that ran with it. And I remember raising my hand. It's okay, the book's designed. When are we going to start talking about blurbs? And they were like, I don't think we need blurbs for this book. And I said, well, could we just think about the opportunity that perhaps at least one blurb might be good? And they said, oh, that's a good point. Well, we can ask David Leibowitz. And it's just you know what? I can honestly say that David blurbing that book helped with sales. But it wasn't a book. It wasn't a book that they even thought needed a blurb because it was just a single subject.
And how do you know that about, did David recommend it? Because I know when he recommends something, it just pops up.
He recommended it. And then I saw the number spike. I saw the number of shipped books spike through the Penguin Random House author portal. But if he hadn't been asked to blurb the book, it wouldn't have been on his radar. All these things kind of had to align.
And I think that when I talk about being pivotal, or it can be life-changing on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Any book, and if you're the author of a book, you got that contract, or you're self-published, you believe in your work.
Yeah.
And your purpose is in that manuscript. You brought it, carried it all the way through the end. And it's going to matter to you, whoever that buys it. And you got to believe in your work. And if it's just I just wanted to write a book. No, then maybe writing a book and getting it published is not your thing. I mean, I'm sorry to say
I think
that.
I'm just trying to distinguish, because I guess it's you're coming off of Cooking Thai. I'm coming off of Turtle Island. Where it's just 5 years, never been a book like this before. And I'm
never again. Yeah.
maybe I just want to write Wine Style,
Yeah, maybe you just want snacks and wine.
A book about dips. I know you're working on, Kate, which I think I'm just trying to distinguish there, because I feel those books exist and they meet a moment and meet a customer and it's like you believe in them, but again, you're not like...
But you can blurb those books because they have a place.
I could blurb that book if I were to go in there and find some recipes that I felt like, all right, I need this in my back pocket.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
And also, given the price of eating out these days, like a cookbook is such a good deal.
Such a good deal.
It really is. Yeah.
It pays you back for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's all sorts of reasons that a book can meet the moment. And the moment doesn't always have to be a groundbreaking work of staggering genius that you'll never see another one in the next, 100 years. It could be, you know what? I learned how to make this 30-minute meal and now it's on repeat in my house. And I never thought of putting these two ingredients together or this technique. And there's other instances in this book that are like that. That's
right.
Worth celebrating.
And your blurb, if you're writing blurbs, they don't all have to say this is the most amazing book that's ever been written on X, Y, and Z, because it may not be. It still might be worth the $35, $45. And that's what to be believable in your assessment of it.
Right.
Let's talk about how to do the ask.
And what to do when you get it.
Yeah, Molly, that's a good point, because I like hearing the perspective from the other side as well, because we should say, like, Sally Eckes's post, she goes into so much detail for all these tactical things. So read that. But we were kind of talking about the etiquette. I like the idea of like giving somebody an out in terms of like, I understand if you're too busy, those kinds of things. And then I feel like anything you ask somebody to do ever should just be very personal, like very personalized. It shouldn't feel like you copy and pasted it and sent it to 30 people. What else for you?
When I send a query out to a potential blurber, first I will connect with them personally. Maybe I saw them recently or interacted with them on email. But it's like, why do I think they will like this book?
Mm-hmm.
So I think very, very much, like I was writing this and that, and I was thinking of you, and I think that you would really enjoy this. So would you consider reviewing the book for a potential blurb?
Potential, keyword.
Potential blurb, if it works out. If you say yes, then I will put you in contact with my editor who will forward the manuscript. And then it's due by X date back to my editor, who is this person. And
oh, right, because then they collect it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Again, because as a blurber, I don't want to like be sending the blurb directly to the author because I think that's kind of dirty.
Yeah.
And it's awkward also. They can see it. So I would rather just go to the editor or to the editor and the author. What I don't like is first-time authors coming out and going, hey, Andrea, we're gathering blurbs, so would you give an endorsement to my book?
Through a DM?
It's due in 2 weeks. And I'm like, who is your editor?
That's an easy no, I guess, right? I mean, if it's like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit too, like, cozy.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, if it's someone that I know, also if, like, they have the editor ask me, I'm like, what's wrong with that person? Why don't they just, like, email me themselves and say, would you do this? Because I feel like if it comes from the author, it's much more meaningful than coming from an editor. But, yeah, it's always for a potential blurb.
Yeah.
If you are available.
Mm-hmm.
No worries if not.
No, I never no worries. I never know worries. I always like this, and these are the parameters.
That's Hollywood speak, yeah.
But some kind of hedge. Yeah, it's funny because like I do feel like sometimes in a lot of our communications, we need to get away from hedging. The collective, we, not us here. But like in this case, I feel like that hedging is pretty important.
Yeah. I mean, and like we asked Nigella Lawson for the Thai book, and I emailed her and her assistant. And she was completely unavailable because she just started on the Great Baking Show thing. And she was just, I'm so sorry, she's unavailable. But she would love to see the book anyway. So we had our editor send it along.
Wonderful.
Sometimes someone is unavailable, but they're just really interested. And that matters because they know about the book. I mean, if you're just one more person that knows about your book.
And she might write an endorsement that then can be used later.
Exactly.
Molly, as somebody who has received a bunch of requests, what should people know?
That if you say no, to not take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasons, you don't have to know the reason. You don't have to give a reason. I mean, you could say I'm too busy or whatever it is, but sometimes it's just not the right book. Or whether it's you don't have time or you have a problem with it or whatever it is. So I think it's a professional ask, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you do blurb a book, we've talked about blurbs that don't get used. I've been in that situation where I've done taken the time, read the book, written a blurb, and it never got used. There was no communication around that. And so that's sort of kind of like your situation, Kristin, where your blurbers were like, hey, what happened to that?
Yeah, I wish I had pre-communicated it, actually.
But as an author, there's so much going on. It's like, it's easy to miss that. So I would say a courtesy because certainly the next time that publisher, editor, author reaches out to me, I'm going to be like, what happened last time, guys? But then the other thing is even if they don't use it, but certainly if they do use it, send the blurber a copy.
Yeah,
Of course.
Oh, God.
That doesn't always happen, which is crazy to me.
I hate that.
That is an endorsement that, you should have that person, their name is on the back of jacket or wherever it is of your book. They should have the book and maybe they'll talk about it or do something. So make sure when they say yes, and as an author, you get their address and you make sure that their name is on your complimentary copy or whatever you're sending out.
Tell your editor the blurbers each needs a copy. There is a particular publishing house that I have blurbed for, and they never send me an author copy or a blurber copy.
Yeah, bad etiquette.
What about if a blurber says yes and then ghosts you? What do you do? Or, they say yes. Editor sends the manuscript out for review. And then you're like 2 days before, a week before the blurbs are due. You haven't heard anything about that person. What do you do?
Oh, I would send a courtesy follow-up, just very gently worded. Or I would ask the editor to, or something. The editors probably do it. But yeah, I would probably just send a courtesy follow-up. Like, if you would like to provide a blurb for our deadlines, we need them in by yada, yada date.
I also might just make sure that the editor hasn't already sent that email because, sometimes authors can get badgered and they're getting all these emails from all these sorts of people. And especially if it's not, say, the publisher that you've worked with and you're getting this other publisher. And I've been in a situation where the publisher and the author have both been pushy about something that I didn't even know I had agreed to. And so it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And then, of course, I don't want to have anything to do with either person or the publishing house. So yeah, it's good to have alignment, I think, between whoever's asking for the blurb and then whoever's doing the follow-up, and just make sure that you're all aligned, because you just don't want to send out too many reminders.
Exactly.
Tone is very important.
Yeah, so that's where you want to plan these things with your editor. Like, I always come up with a game plan with my editor for blurbs. Like, okay, I'm willing to do the ask. If you know such and such person better, you can do the ask. We divide and conquer, but you have to do the follow-up and be like the bad person, sort of. You okay with that? And they're like, yeah, all right, that's my job. Cool. Let's go.
Yeah, that's smart.
And again, I would just don't take it personally, because who knows? Maybe they've just written a book on the same subject and it's coming out and they don't. You have no idea. You have no idea why they didn't do it in the end, but just move on.
So why have you said no, Molly?
Many reasons. For me, it's mostly about recipes that I really believe in. Like that these are recipes that are going to deliver. Even if they're simple, I just have to feel like the recipes are well tested.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I can work around a lot of things if I, like the person, like the topic. But if I feel like the recipes are going to let people down, I've said no.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The recipes let people down, or if there are egregious factual mistakes. That means that people didn't edit the book. No one fact checked. Then I'm like, I don't want my name on that. And if it's something that really matters to me, I may even write a note to the editor. I'm not going to ghost them. I'm just going to say, look, I just don't feel comfortable doing this and I'm sorry. It's a professional thing, and I think that editors understand that. Authors may not, but it's like you're vetting someone's work And if it's not tight, it's not solid, then you're kind of supporting loosey-goosey material. That's not good.
If you could get a blurb from anyone, who would it be?
I want to say Jacques Pepin in the moment.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I'd say Julia Child.
Nice.
Well, I should say Diana Kennedy because of what Molly said earlier.
Yeah, no, Diana Kennedy. We're all changing to Diana Kennedy. Oh, man. I sort of got drunk with her one time.
Really? Wow. That's legendary.
I went clothes shopping with her.
What?
What?
That's a story for another time. On Mother's Day, no less.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I was thinking Laurie Colwin.
Oh, good one.
Oh, good one. Yeah. Gabrielle Hamilton, just because her writing is someone who can really write. So it's a blurb that's just going to be like.
Yeah.
I would add Rebecca Mackay because she's usually closed for blurbs and she has a Pulitzer Prize. So for her novel, The Great Believer. So Rebecca Mackay, when you're opening blurbs, I'm raising my hand.
Something to work toward.
So I think when you're doing your tiers, that's something to consider. Someone who's going to write I don't know, also like there are people who blurb a lot and that's not a bad thing, but just consider that. Consider whose name you want to endorse your book, I think.
For sure. Well, so fun to get together with everybody.
Yeah.
Great topic, Kristin. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Everything Cookbooks. For more about each episode, subscribe to our newsletter at everythingcookbooks.substack.com. Here are some other ways you can support the show, which we would absolutely love. Go to everythingcookbooks.com and check out our totes, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other merch, or buy us a round of coffee to help us keep the lights on. You can also leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Thank you to our editor, Abby Circatella. Until next time, keep on writing, reading, and cooking.